Hello and welcome back to this channel. My name is Frida Wiesel, and in this channel, I explore topics related to Judaism, New York City, and my specialty, Hasidism, which is the world that I come from. I do interviews, essays, food videos, and more. Today, for my long-form interview series, I'll be speaking to Peggy Greenfield, a certified relationship and intimacy coach who comes from the Hasidic community in Williamsburg and now serves as part of her clientele, this population. She also runs a popular social media account where she talks candidly about issues related to intimacy and sex. Now, a word of disclaimer before we begin. This discussion will contain adult themes on sex. If you're not comfortable with this discussion, I would suggest you click out now, and I'll see you in another video. Before I start this interview, I want to interject to add this. After I recorded this conversation, I spoke to a number of people because I wanted to make sure that I handle this very sensitive topic with as much forethought and nuance and care as possible. After all, my aim is never to exoticize or to satisfy some voyeuristic impulse, but rather to touch on topics that are human, that are universal, that we can all relate to no matter our backgrounds. And what I heard from people were a number of things. People had various different experiences that might not have been reflected in this discussion. Some people felt that Hasidic marriage prep is more adequate and extensive than is described here. And most of all, people expressed a desire to see me publish this interview and to have a discussion around a topic that is so central and so important to our lives. I want to remind you that a discussion with an intimacy coach will by definition reflect the more problematic things, and I hope you can keep that in perspective as you listen to our conversation. Hello, Peggy, and thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thanks for having me.
I have so many questions for you, Peggy, but before I talk more about the specific things you see in your practice, I would love to get to know you a little bit. Do you mind sharing a little bit about where you come from and where you are today?
Sure. I grew up in Williamsburg, Satmar, which is one of the biggest sects in Williamsburg. I grew up there. I got married there. I moved out to Rockland County, and I have two beautiful daughters. I got divorced around 14 years ago. I went on my own path, and now I'm not part of the community anymore. However, it's both. I'm not part of it, but I'm very much part of it in a way, because I work with them, and I love them. I do. I understand them. I speak their language. I speak Yiddish fluently. I totally get them through and through. I get the guys. I get the women. I know exactly where they come from and what they're going through, because I've been there, done that. However, now I practice my own, I do my own thing, but there's respect on both sides.
What's your therapy practice? Like, how would you describe your training and what you practice? I
took a 2-year training in Somatica, which is a school where they teach about it's you heard of somatic therapy. It's about the body, like what you feel, how you feel, where you store stuff, and somatica is almost like the erotica of the body, like how you feel, where you feel triggered or shame or frustration, and especially in the sexual aspect. So I have a certificate in that, and then I did relationship coaching. I have a certificate in relationship coaching.
And I want, for the viewer who doesn't know anything about the Hasidic community, doesn't know anything about this unique population, to get a sense of the specific and unique challenges that people who you see who come from the Hasidic community come from, because they come from this very religious world. So can you, in your words, describe what their unique sexual learning background is for this specific population?
So there's no actual sex education in the school systems. They usually don't know anything about sex. I mean, the majority doesn't know anything about sex or intimacy. They do not watch movies and don't see any type of affection or anything between their parents either. Like you don't really see parents hugging or touching each other, let alone not even like touching in a way where if you want to remove something from someone's arm or something, you wouldn't even see that between their parents. No hand holding, no type of affection at all.
Would you say there's not even no type of physical affection?
True. That's correct.
What do they learn about sex? What would you say a lot of people from the Hasidic community do learn about sex? Because ultimately, if you don't have sex education in school, you still usually learn certain things about sex because your body is telling you certain things in your teenage years, and not having a direct education teaches you things in an inadvertent way, right? So what would you say you would experience that people do learn about sex in their childhood from this world?
Some parents are more open than others, so they will tell their kids about the periods. Not all parents, not all mothers tell their daughters about their periods, to be honest. So those who do would tell their friends, or if they have a married sibling and they heard things from others, from the older siblings, so they will repeat it to their friends, to the younger ones, in any way.
Before they get married, though, there is sex education. What would you say you know about that particular kind of sex education? Maybe from your own experience or what you're hearing from your clients.
When they get engaged, they sign up. So the grooms, or the chassan is a groom, would sign up to chassan lessons, which is there's like a teacher where he will provide an education, which is mostly consists of rules and regulations, what you're supposed to or allowed to do with your spouse after the wedding. And the kala, or the bride, would go to a kala teacher, and where she would explain, not in great detail at all, maybe with a little illustration, or she would draw something, or that would represent like a penis, and she would just talk around the bush and not really say explicit details what they're supposed to do. A lot of them say your groom will tell you. He's gonna know. Like, your husband is gonna show you or tell you. And the chassan teachers say the same things. They're like, your wife will show you, will lead you. And sometimes they fumble around because none of them get like a real like a good education about it.
Are you speaking, Peggy, from personal experience, or are you hearing this in your practice?
Both.
Both.
Yes.
Because, I also went to kala lessons. My own personal experience was I figured out facts about the birds and the bees from gossiping with girls. We surmised what sex was without it being entirely clear what sex was, but we understood. My body definitely understood what sex was. Like, I had a kind of a hormonal feeling of what sex was. And I was sent for lessons as well. But I only really know my own experience. I got these lessons where I was taught very explicitly about my bride teacher tried to be really direct and tried to name everything, I think. Would you be able to talk about what you're hearing in specific? Like, can you give examples of what you're hearing people talk about?
With a groom teacher, or the chassan teacher, so he would just say that a female looks different. He'll describe the anatomy of a female, that it looks different than the male. There's no penis there. There's a hole. And the females have a hole where they pee, the urethral opening. And then there's the vagina, the canal, where they're supposed to go in. So they tell them that they're gonna have an erection, and once they have an erection, they should go in, and the wife will lead them in there. So the wife will tell them where to put it in. He tells them that it will hurt because their hymen is closed, and so he should just do it really quickly, very rapidly, like just go in quickly, get it over with, and get out. Some say that there should be a little bit of kissing and a hug before they enter. Most don't talk about elaborate foreplay where you have to make sure the woman gets wet. Females can orgasm too. There's usually no talk about that. I know that some groom teachers or chusin teachers are more open-minded, but I'm talking about the majority that I hear here in this practice, that they're not like that. They don't talk about foreplay or female orgasm at all.
When people talk to you about how they were educated in sex, how do they feel it impacted their sex lives after marriage?
Very badly. Very, very, very badly. Yeah, first of all, a lot of the females get pregnant almost like within 6 to 12 months after they, before they even get to know each other. The woman gets pregnant already. So once you're pregnant, the hormones change anyway. The hormones change and you feel different, and then you're nursing, and then, the postpartum and everything until probably 2 years after, if she's not pregnant again, then they can start, okay, something's wrong, what's going on here? Um, our intimate life is like weird, and like she's not even comfortable with her husband usually to be completely naked and to be open and vulnerable and all that. She's not comfortable yet because she was taught to be cineas, which is modest, and not uncover herself at all these years, with the long skirts, the tights, the everything has to be covered. They don't even tell them why they should be covered. That it's because of the guy's sexual appetite or anything like that. It's just that it's a mitzvah to be tznius, or so
Yeah.
they don't understand what's going on. They have to cover, and now when they get married, all of a sudden everything comes off, and they have to uncover, and they have to be with this strange guy they don't even know with their husbands. So there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of misunderstanding, pain. There's a lot of pain. It's emotional pain. Most of the time, it's emotional pain. They suffer from vaginismus and stuff like that, which is a lot of times emotionally because they're not at ease with their bodies to relax and to enjoy it.
So, who usually decides to come to your practice? What do you find, the men or the woman?
I would say it's both, but for different reasons. So the guys would come because they want more sex and better sex. The women would come because they want an emotional connection. And the guys don't understand, they don't really have a great understanding of what emotions are, especially for the women. And by the way, I want to make a disclaimer here. When I say guys, or when I say men or women, I mean mostly, for the most part. There are many who do, but it's for the most part.
Yeah, we're talking in generalizations. And in a world where men and women are raised in completely different cultures, it's very fair, I think, to talk in generalizations because they have they have received different messages, and they are operating off of a different culture that they have been raised in. Do you, in your practice, it seems from your social media that you work a lot in people's sex lives. Like a lot of your work seems to focus on helping people with their sex lives issues. What kind of support do you give? Does it involve like assignments? Does it involve specific instructions? I'm trying to get a sense of what your role is besides for listening and reflecting and like talk therapy.
Usually couples do homework. It depending on what their issue is. But if it's a communication issue, then I have them practice at home certain communication methods that they should use with each other. Um, and I give them, it's mostly advice driven. I give them a lot of um, guidance and advice they should practice at home, and then they come back and we talk about it, how it went, and give them ideas how to spice up their life, how to attune to each other's needs. No specific exercises, if uh, if that's what you meant by exercise.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm wondering if there's like a if it involves touch her there and I don't know, see what happens
Of course. I
kind of
mean,
thing.
yeah, that's part of the guidance and the coaching. So I explain to them about foreplay. I teach them how to make, women want to know how to squirt, for example. So I teach the guys how to do that. So that's kind of with a method.
What kind of fundamental things do you feel like you have to teach because people are so naive or so not knowledgeable?
Well, for the most part, that women can orgasm too, and it's important for them. And if a woman is wet, that's not an indication that she's had an orgasm. That's a big one. That comes up a lot, especially newlyweds. For the women, I tell them, like, the guys, it looks like to them it looks like their husbands are like have a sex addiction just because they want to have sex twice a week or something, that there's a sex addiction. So I have to explain it to them that it's not.
Wow, twice a week the women think is a sex addiction?
2 or 3 times a week, especially the way he asks for it, like in a desperate way, like he just wants to come. We're just like, not in a way like, hey, let's connect, like almost like I'm thirsty. Give me a drink, like I'm thirsty.
It's very sad. This conversation is already making me very sad because there's like so much miscommunication, misunderstanding. When we were talking before, you said that you teach couples to kiss, which really struck me. What does it mean to teach couples to kiss?
Um, like French kissing, how to
I guess
kiss.
so. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah.
What does it mean? You said that you teach couples how to kiss.
How to kiss, or how to other techniques, like how to give him a blowjob, or how to, all kinds of stuff, where anything that's a little more than just missionary, plain missionary, boring sex. Anything that's takes them to the next level.
Uh-huh. Are Hasidic clients comfortable with this kind of candid conversation?
No, not always. So I tell them, I usually tell them beforehand that we're going to talk very openly. It actually calms them down. When I am the one that's comfortable, they tend to open up a little more. If I was shy, then they would be so much more shy. If I calm them down, I'm like, look, we're going to talk very openly. We can use any language you want. Just use language, just use words. I don't like when clients use like doing it, or they try to say the that place instead of, that's a vagina. This is a penis. It's called sex. It's called lovemaking. It's called being physically intimate. It's not, I like when they use those words. And this is a blowjob. And this is a going down on a woman, or cunnilingus. That's a little too fancy. I like to use the proper words
Yeah.
for these things. I think it's helpful. So yeah, some clients can blush, but I ask them usually if they feel a little uncomfortable, but I reassure them that it's fine. This room is a safe space, and we're going to talk about everything and anything, because if it's not here, then if we don't talk about it, I can't help you.
I'm sure this happens a lot that one part of the couple, one partner is eager to have the discussion and the other partner maybe is coming as a reluctant participant to appease.
I have it often. A lot of the times I have guys come without their wife's knowledge. I basically teach them how to talk to their wives, how to bring her over here, what to say to her, and so she wants to come here. I usually touch emotional intimacy so that she's gonna want to come here, because trust me, before they come here, they talk to them. They're unhappy, and the women know that they're unhappy. So they're like, so he's fed up, and he's like, okay, I've got to come alone. And then sh she's usually the one that doesn't have, um, that's not satisfied with the emotional part of it, with the emotional intimacy. So if I tell him to tell her, Like, we're going to talk about emotional intimacy. It's not really about sex. Sex is an outcome. The emotional intimacy is where it starts, which can lead to great sex. So he says it to her in a way that would make her be open to the thought of coming here and talking about it. And vice versa. I have women too that come alone. I have women too that come alone. They don't feel satisfied. They don't feel sexually satisfied, emotionally satisfied. And they're like, how do I bring my husband here? How do I bring him over? So we talk about it. And then finally, usually that's what ends up happening. He comes and we open discussion and we start talking about these important topics.
I had like 3 questions that all flew out of my mind because you were talking about other things, and it's like such an intense topic. One thing that's on my mind actually right now that is like hovering in the back of my mind is you seeing male clients by yourself as a woman, especially men who don't fully maybe understand issues with sexual harassment. What's sexual harassment? What's not sexual harassment? What's the borderline? Is it a concern for you personally, and how do you deal with that?
So I have very strict boundaries. So if somebody's inappropriate with me, I put them back into their place and I remind them that this is a boundary that I'm not willing to cross. Let's say a silly comment, like they would comment about my body and they would say, oh, like something about my breasts or whatever. And I'm like, this is inappropriate and this crosses the boundary. I want to redirect you. And usually they're very respectful. They feel bad. It comes from a lack of education of, they're with a woman here and they talk sexual stuff. So I kindly remind them and I understand them. I have empathy for them. I understand them. And I'm like, this is not appropriate. So they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't know that. I'm like, yeah. And then we continue with the discussion. I have some guys who are like, oh my gosh, this turns me on so much. Like, can you see? And I'm like, no. And I'm not interested. I'm not. So we don't have to discuss that. And let's focus on the topic and don't worry about it. I don't want to shame them for having an erection. I don't. I try not to shame them because I'm very against shame when it comes to sexuality. So I'm like, no, I can't see. I don't know what's in your mind. And who cares? Let's just try to focus on the topic.
To which degree do you find that shame for this population, I'm sure you have other clients, is more prevalent than with people who grow up with maybe more comfortable being undressed and more sex education?
I would say it's like this. Guys go to the mikvah, which is a ritual bath, where they get undressed from, I don't know, from the 2 or 3 years old. Their fathers take them and they see they're more in nudity than women. So there's a little less shame when it comes to body or body image with guys than it is with the females. However, I did notice that guys have a huge, it's more like guilt than shame about their genital area because they were taught not to touch themselves at all. No masturbation, no. Actually, they don't even tell them no masturbation. They're like, that area is holy. They beat around the bush a lot. Like, that area is holy. Don't even put your hands in your pocket because it can. They don't tell them exactly why. Don't even lay on your stomach. Don't put your hands in your pocket. Don't look. Don't touch. All these rules, which then they feel like shame and guilt for having pleasure. So it's like a mix of shame, pleasure, guilt, all wrapped in one. And they don't know how to deal with that. It's weird feelings that they haven't felt because now when they're married, they're supposed to have sex, but they feel guilty and weird and awkward. And especially if they don't have enough sex, they're going to masturbate. And they feel a tremendous amount of shame and guilt when it comes to that.
But women don't. Women are not taught anything about masturbation, but also not indirectly. So would you say women don't carry that kind of negative feelings, baggage around masturbation?
So women are taught about tznius, about modesty, and where they cannot show their body. I mean, I'm not even talking about the genitals or anything. I'm talking about like elbows or collarbones or the knees. Everything has to be covered completely, no skin except for the hands and the face. So there's a tremendous amount of shame, especially the first few weeks after when you're supposed to take all the clothes off. There's no hole in the sheet myth. So usually the bride or the wife, the newly married wife would remove all her, remove her nightgown. And that's very, very, very shameful for her because she's never been nude in front of other people. However, when they go to the mikvah, the ritual bath, they are completely nude in front of the mikvah lady, the lady that leads them down to the water, to the, how do you call that? The actual mikvah, the actual body of water.
It's a little pool where the woman has to go to immerse herself after her period.
Yes, and that's the first time they're completely nude in front of another female, usually an older female, but still there's a lot of shame, and a lot of women, um, they really don't like to go to the mikveh because of that. For many other reasons, but this is one big reason that they feel weird and awkward that another woman is gonna see them. However, they're very respectful. I found when I went that the ladies usually they have a towel open and they cover their face with it to to pay respect for the lady that's gonna dip. Not all of them do it. Not all of them do it, but with my experience, they did try. So it's a little less awkward.
I think there is a kind of a fantasy in the popular world that the mikvah lady, there's some kind of sexual energy with the mikvah ladies, and people seem to me to like the story of the mikvah lady who's inappropriate. And I've heard a lot of these stories. In my experience, also, they are these old women who have seen all sorts of female bodies and they're just trying to get it over with. But I remember also as being a shy young woman being extremely uncomfortable with the mikveh experience, that there was a woman there when you're completely undressed. It's a very shocking thing. Something I wonder about a lot is there must be some women who come out of this modesty experience not having these shame feelings about their bodies. Like, do you find that there is a spectrum how people are affected by the same kind of messaging?
Yes, some women find it incredibly exciting that they can finally unveil, that they can finally disrobe, they can finally be naked, and it's sort of like a rebellious streak that they have. Like I wasn't allowed to until now. Watch what I can do. And those are the women that they have a pretty healthy uh, attitude towards their sexuality. They would masturbate openly. Openly, I mean, with their husbands. They would not. They would wear lingerie or something sexy in the bedroom. They wouldn't have that. They aren't as prude as the other ones. And there's so many, and there's a lot in between. There's a lot like, it takes some time, and then within a year they start getting comfortable. Some have really amazing marriages, so the husband helps her get out of her shell a little bit. So there's that too. And there's the other side where the women are more comfortable than the men. So the women help the guys get out of their shell. There's a little bit of everything. However, the majority is the shame for both of them, especially for the females.
Yeah, around the body, shame around the body.
Yeah.
In the Hasidic community, these very young people are married off and they have these messages about sexual inhibition, about shame, about what not to touch and where not to look. And suddenly they're thrust into going from no sexual contact to having sex on the wedding night with essentially a stranger. What happens to these two people who have that shared experience? What do you find it does to the relationship?
So to be honest, the majority don't even talk about it. They can have sex a few times a month, like, I don't know, like twice a week. But once that is over, once he goes back into his bed, they don't talk about it. That discussion is over. They don't talk about it. They don't say, there's no post-sex talk. Like, how was it for you? This is how it was for me. And this is what I strongly encourage couples to do. They have to talk about their sex life with each other to see, how can we improve? Was this enjoyable to you? Is there anything I can do more? Is there anything I should do less? Do you want to explore something together? The minority, though, do talk about it, and they do want to open up that. They do want to talk about it more and help themselves to have better, more satisfying sex lives. But the majority, they don't talk about sex. And I see couples who are 30 years married or more they still don't really talk about sex. It's not a discussion at all. You do it, and that's it. So not a lot of bonding.
Not a lot of bond, because I'm wondering if there's like shared youthful, like almost trauma in the wedding night. How do people talk to you about the wedding night? Because the wedding night, I think, is traumatic for what I've heard of a lot of people.
So I only hear the sad stories. I don't usually hear the like, oh my God, we had an amazing night. Like they probably wouldn't come see me really. Like those who are like great from the start, they don't normally come unless they want to like enhance their setup because they've been stagnant and bored in the bedroom. But I do hear very, very sad stories when it comes to that. So the couple gets married and he's not really attracted to her at all. Like once they get married, he's not very into her for several different reasons. Either because he's gay and he just got married because it's part of the system. And he's not attracted to females at all. And it's hard for him to have an erection. So you can't break the hymen without an erection. You can't do that. So he would have to like, it would take them a very, very long time for this to happen. So that's one experience. Or where she has tremendous amount of pain and she's not interested and she feels like there's a stranger in her bedroom because they don't really talk throughout the engagement. So there's no interaction. There's nothing like for them to be warmed up. So what happens is they would get home after the wedding, which is probably like late at night, 2 or 3 a.m. or later. They would both go into the shower separately. Usually she would wait in the bed for him to get in. You know, they would recite something like a blessing or something beforehand, and she would go into bed, and the Kala teacher, the teacher, whoever taught her about sexuality would tell her to lay down and put a pillow under her bottom and be ready for him to come in and just to receive him, something like that. And he would go in he would remove his pajamas, go in, and just either give her a little kiss or not, and just try to enter her. Oh, they would use lube, like some sort of lube, like yeah, lubricant. It's not always a success, so they would have to try many times. I've had couples here who never consummated the marriage, even a year or more after. They never ever consummated the marriage. They never ever were successful. They were struggling either with erection or shame or pain.
On the other side, we see here a lot of the, of course, negative sides of the inhibition and the modesty. There is another side to that, which is an innocence. In the secular world, there is an overexposure to sex. There's an introduction to pornography at a very young age. Can you speak to, do you find that people have a certain degree of innocence because they're so sheltered? Would you say that's correct?
There's for sure an innocence, especially with women. Also, you have to understand that a lot of the guys have seen pornographic images or videos even before they get married. A lot of women haven't. They have no idea. And the husband wants to do like stuff that he saw in porn with her, and she's like, "What do you want from me?" Like, even touch her breasts, and she's like, "Okay, this feels weird and uncomfortable. Why are you touching my, like, why are you even touching me there?" Or trying to finger her, or like explore the vagina, and she's like, "This is strange. This is weird. This is like awkward." I'm not even going with oral sex. That's like a whole new topic to discuss.
Because there is a religious issue with oral sex.
I usually don't hear this in my practice. I usually don't hear about the religious, not so much. It's more of, it's disgusting. Like it's something that's, why would I go there? Why would I do it? Like it's gross, something like that, more than the religious.
That men feel like it's gross, or
Both of them,
both genders.
both. I find that men find it less gross than women. Men are tend to be more into oral sex, giving, and women don't really like, um, giving oral sex.
What's your advice on pornography when people come to you and they say they watch pornography? What's your opinion on it?
Watching separately, I don't think it's a good idea. I don't think it's a good idea for guys to watch porn, because it gives them wrong expectations. And um, there's no education on how females like to have sex. It's geared towards, so porn is mostly geared towards guys. There's even a genre in porn where it says female porn, where it's like more romantic and slower, and it's not so action based. With In regular porn, it's like, it's very graphic, it's very goal oriented. They get to the point like immediately. There's not a lot of foreplay in porn. So guys love that because they like to get to the point and they just need to, they jerk off to it, and it does its job. But women, there are many women who do enjoy and watch porn. They are, but I don't think it's a great idea for guys, especially if they want to learn how to treat a woman, and how to have great sex with their own wife, and they take it from porn. I think it's pretty bad. However, if the couple wants to enhance their own sex life and both of them like to watch porn together, then it can be exciting for them. And I would encourage it, occasionally, if it can enhance their own life and they can learn stuff from there, different positions and different ideas.
Is it hard to communicate to people that porn is bad if they come from a world where they think that to open yourself up sexually is maybe to throw away all the taboos?
Actually, no, I found it pretty easy for me to convey that message to the guys, and most of them agree. I have a lot of clients who are addicted to porn and they hate it. They really don't like it. They feel horrible. They feel horrible that they can't get out of it.
Yeah. On your social media, you have like a whole category on Instagram of sex positions. And you ask me, what's your favorite sex position? And people are like, me and hubby or me and my wife like to do it like this. We like to do, when you're overweight, when you're like oversized bodies, or when you're pregnant, what works. Like people seem to be so comfortable sharing about their sex lives. Is that what you find on your Instagram? Or is it just a selective number?
No, no, it's all anonymous. I can't see who writes them. So they have a space there on my social media account that they can be anonymous. So they can share everything and anything, even more when they're with me in person. So they can share all their fantasies, fetishes, kinks, whatever's going on, or what they want to happen too. So it's a very comfortable space and a safe space for them to put it out there. And I've heard back. I get a tremendous amount of feedback from couples, from people on my social media, private. They message me in private that it's helped them a lot. They look through. Not all of them participate in writing, but they read it and they're like, "Wow, this is an interesting idea. I would love to try this," and it helps them. So it's a great feeling to know that this space is, you can talk about everything and anything. It's almost like you're a fly in somebody else's bedroom, where you never had that opportunity until now, where you can actually see what's going on there.
Was there any clue that you can see looking back in your childhood that you were going to be comfortable talking about sex coming from such a world where it's so taboo to talk about it?
So I always had a rebellious streak to me. And I was super curious about everything and anything. I was curious about my body. I was curious about the world. I was curious about everything. So I had to explore everything. Like, this feels interesting. This feels strange. And, I tried different types of things. And I was reading. So we didn't have any English books at home. I had to read the encyclopedia and the dictionary. I read the dictionary from cover to cover because there was nothing else to read in English. So, and I would see the word sex, and I was like, wait, they don't describe it. They're like, gender and male, female, and then I would go and dig further and further. But yeah, I was super. It's the curiosity and the little rebellious streak that made me for who I am today. And I feel like shame. If there's shame within it, then you can't really have a relaxed, enjoyable sexual experience with shame.
How do you guide people to let go of their shame?
First of all, to talk about it. Talk about it. It's okay. Nothing happens if you talk about it, meaning only within the couple, like not with, I'm not advocating for them to talk to their friends or to their relatives, but talk with each other about it. What do you feel? What is it that, what do you need? And what do you feel? And try to explore different things. Trying to let go, trying to be in your body and not in your head, and just let go of stigma,
Yeah.
let go. It's hard for me to explain it to you here, but when I have it during a session, like we go into a lot of details and we discuss it bit by bit. So it depends on where the shame it comes from, and I try to navigate them in a way where it's comfortable enough for them to just let go. And also that it's normal, that it's not weird, and a lot of other couples do it too. For example, like if he wants to go down on her, just giving an example, and she's like, it's so embarrassing, like it's I feel so awkward and weird. Like, why would I want another face in there? Like, so I tell her that so many couples, it's a very normal part of, and she's like, really? Other people do it too? I thought it's only my husband who wants this. I thought he's crazy. They're like, no, this is kind of not really. Like a lot of couples do this, and they're like, they feel so, they feel more calm knowing that they're not the only ones and their husband isn't crazy for doing it, for wanting to do it.
Can you talk more about what kind of shame? This was a very interesting example. Can you talk about how it might apply to men?
So I have couples where the women are freakier than their husbands, and they're more open and comfortable, and he's like shy and not comfortable with his sexuality. So I would talk to him about it, and also a lot of them think that women they should be quieter about what they want and need, like their desires. They shouldn't be so outspoken. It's like, to them, sometimes they feel like they're being a slut. And I really, really dislike that word. I don't, I really don't like the word slut or whore or whatever that is, like, especially when it comes to marriage. Like, be the most slutty you can. And there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing, there's nothing shameful or bad about it. It's, in a way, it's healthy to be completely comfortable and be yourself. So he might have a problem with it for many different reasons, from because growing up, like, it's, you don't really talk about it, and also females are supposed to be the modest ones. They're not supposed to talk about what pleases them in the bedroom, or they want to have orgasms, they want to squirt. They're like, and the guys are like, they're not used to women talk like this. So it's kind of intimidating to the men. It almost feels emasculating to them that they are more modest than their wives. Now I try to talk to them to open up a little bit and to go step by step and try to look at their wives as super healthy, and eventually they would have amazing passionate sex because she is all the way the other side, and he doesn't have to meet her needs all at once, but very gradually, and he'll see that he will enjoy it because his wife would be so much happier.
To which degree do you find people are come to you seeking a happy marriage? Like, how much do they prioritize? They want their marriage to be good.
Most of them. And I have guys who open up, they're like, they were they were cheating a lot, but ultimately at the end of the day, they wish to not be able to cheat and to be with their wife. They would do anything to just have a normal, great sex life with their wife, much rather than going to find other females. So most of them want to have a great, amazing marriage and sex life.
To what degree is there an issue with rabbinic authority needed? Do people say, well, you can say there's not a problem with shame, but you're not a rabbi.
Yeah, I have it a lot. So especially from women, they call me up if I have a backing or a hechsher. A hechsher is like a stamp, like a kosher stamp for my work that I spoke to a rabbi, and the rabbi's like, yeah, you are qualified to teach our community about sex. So usually I tell them, no, I have no rabbinical background or stamp or anything like that. But honestly, I don't need to because I don't talk about the halachas or the rules. I don't talk about my hashkafa or my way of life. I don't tell them, hey, do what I do or do what I used like. I don't talk about that. I try to analyze what are their rules, what are their boundaries. I talk to them first what their boundaries are, and I ask them, do you guys watch movies or no? If they say no, we're going to redirect and find a different route of how to um, enhance their life with certain things. You see what I'm saying? Like, but the majority don't really have an issue with that. It's just the nuance who are inquiring about my service. They're like, do you have, they're nervous. They don't know what to expect. They're coming to me knowing that I'm not part of the community anymore. They're like, what is she going to tell us to do? Like all these non-Jewish things, or I don't know what's on their mind. Like, like because every way of life, they need a stamp, a kosher stamp, their phones, their everything. So they're going to talk about this most private parts of their life with someone that's not in the community. That's like super taboo. But most of them, very religious, very conservative, they don't even have a smartphone, and they come here with their wives. But I respect their boundaries tremendously, and so I cater to them in a way where I know that it's okay for them because I know the community, so I know the nuances. I know what to say and what not to say, to some.
Yeah. You read where they are in the religious spectrum, what their place is, what their boundaries are, and you respond to that. You're not there to challenge them on what they believe. You're only there to work within those parameters.
Absolutely, absolutely. Not only do I have to read, I can ask them. I can ask them straight up, do you want to go there or not? And they're honest with me, say, no, we're not going there. So sure, okay, so we have to reroute and find a different solution.
You're not looking to impose any set of values. You're just trying to make their marriage come to a better, more intimate place. And I think once they believe that and see that, the whole Hechsher thing probably is not central.
I also have guys who they would love to have a session with me, but they don't want to show their faces. So I've had sessions anonymously. They don't have to tell me their names. I don't ask for a name or for a location. They can call me from anywhere in the world, either on the phone or I've had sessions, text sessions, because they didn't even want me to hear their voices. So we had sessions through text where we can open up, so he can open up to me or she can open up to me completely, and I respond via text. So we have this session back and forth in text, just to stay anonymous, which I find pretty cool because they can get help without exposing their face, their voice, or anything. And they pay with there's an app, Cash App, where it's like anonymous. It's anonymous pay. I just hope that I'm not coaching my siblings or people that I really know through those anonymous.
Oh, yeah, that's so funny. You walk the streets and you're like, is this person someone I coach?
Yes, I would never know. I would never know.
You would never know. It reminds me of the days that my early days online when I was still a Hasidic woman and I had an anonymous blog, and everywhere I went, I was like, do I know, is this person the person I talked to with a pseudonym?
Yeah, yeah.
I would like to, I feel like we've heard so many stories of people's struggles, and I'd like to, I guess, move to more hope.
There are hopeless couples who come here and they're like, their bedroom life is so boring. It's draining. They're not interested in each other anymore. They've been married for 15 years plus. So I try to teach them and tell them different things to how to enhance their stuff. And they're like, oh, wow, I never heard of this. I never heard of that. And I love it. It feels so good to give them this education and teach them a couple of things that they don't know. And then the feedback that I hear that they tried this and they tried that and it really helped them. I get a tremendous amount of feedback. They message me with amazing feedback of this has helped and that has helped. And they learn to communicate. They learn to talk about sex after they've had sex so they can learn, oh, so she liked this and I like that. And, they discuss it. And my main focus is talk about it. Just talk about it. And this is, I always respond, communication. This is the number one step. And couples do start talking about it. They start using sex toys. They start using certain things that would enhance their life, their bedroom life, their intimate life. And especially for guys to open up their minds about emotional intimacy and what it means to the woman, and that when they cater to them, the women open up sexually to them. And that's so surprising for them. It's very surprising to see the connection between emotional and physical intimacy. Like one leads to the other.
We talked a lot about young couples, but in the ultra-Orthodox Jewish community, usually marriages last a very long time. What do you find with couples that have been married for a very long time? How can you speak to that experience and what challenges you see?
Well, if the women go through menopause or perimenopause, I highly encourage them to take the HRT, the hormone replacement therapy.
Estrogen.
They should, estradiol or whatever it is, they should incorporate in their lives. And it totally, totally helps for many to do that. Also, guys suffer from erectile dysfunction. There's a lot of premature ejaculation, erectile dysfunction, and all that. So I encourage them to, healthy diet. And that's always going to be the thing, like exercise and diet, because the erections and that type of stuff is about the blood pressure. So encourage running and walking, going to the gym, and trying your best to be healthy and have a positive attitude. And most importantly, orgasm is not the be all end all when it comes to sex. Try to embrace cuddling. Try to embrace being intimate, being affectionate without having orgasm as the main focus, because it isn't. It shouldn't be. And that's a big one. Like, how do I get my wife to orgasm? You don't. It's like it's a must for the guys, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, really.
Something I wonder about is, these couples get married in arranged marriages. I find that the number of people that your odds are likely to be attracted to is pretty slim relative to the overall population. So it feels like a lottery when you arrange marriages in terms of, are you going to be attracted to this person?
Definitely. However, attraction changes with age. You can be attracted to someone when you're 19, and you're going to be attracted to someone completely different when you're 25 or 30, right? Like, and 40, and on and on. Attraction changes. However, if you're really not attracted from the start at all, like that person completely puts you off and you feel disgusted by them, there's very little to do, to be honest. There's very, very little to do to create a spark. If there hasn't been a spark at all, it's hard to create a spark. But if there's been a spark, but it doesn't shine, it's just like dead, then you can reignite it. But if it never has been ignited before, it's almost impossible to do that. It's almost like conversion therapy. If somebody's like in the gay community, right? If somebody's like attracted to men, like, they encourage them to go to conversion therapy so they can be attracted to females. It doesn't really work like that.
That's what I was also thinking about in terms of attraction. What happens if you're gay, if you have same-sex attraction and you're in this marriage with the opposite sex?
I know many couples who are like that. I know many couples who the women are completely gay. They're married, they have kids, miserable marriages because they are gay. A lot of the times the husbands know. There's not much that can be done. Some of them meet up with other females to have that, extra kick on the side. Not all do. It's very hard for them to be open and to go out in the world and to find other women. And the shame of telling, hey, I'm a lesbian, like I'm not attracted to men. And like with men too, like, and they can't get it from their wife.
What happens when a couple comes to see you, and one of them is gay, and they're like, I really, really want this marriage to work.
I've had this before. I've had this. And so what I say, it depends how high the libido is, right? Like some people have like a really high, they just have to. Some don't really have a high libido to begin with, so they're okay, they're kind of okay. So I try to see what they have in common and to bond with whatever they do have in common. And intimacy doesn't always have to involve the genitals. Intimacy can just be heart to heart, intellectual intimacy, spiritual intimacy. They can connect intimately through other means besides for their genitals. And I try to explain it to them to be kind and nice and loving to each other, even if they aren't connected in that way. Try to be understanding, try to be kind, try to be loving, especially if there are kids involved. If there aren't any kids involved, I encourage them to not stay. I mean, it's not for me to tell them what to do. However, I ask them, why are you staying?
I have a question here. When we spoke before the interview, you said that some of the most pious couples have the most kinky sex lives. And after we talked in the pre-production meeting, I was wondering how you know. Like, why do they even come to you if they are so conservative and they have such great sex?
First of all, they feel like, they need to share. They need to share about their excitement. They need to share to someone else. Like, just to hear, like, this and this, we do this and this. Most of the time, I have this kink and fetish that my wife or husband doesn't know, and I want to tell someone. It's been building up inside. I need to tell someone.
Do you see, like, do couples come to you and they're like, they're good, they're having a blast, they're shacking it up like in the best ways possible, but for some reason they show up to you? Does that happen?
Yeah, because there's always sky's the limit. The sky's the limit.
More.
Like, yeah, we're great, but you know what? We want to take it to the next level. What can we do? So I usually ask them, tell me how it's now, and which level are you at, so I can take you to the next one.
What do you think the future is for this world? Like, are you finding anything changing?
I would highly, highly recommend for couples to take birth control the first year, for sure. Like, get to know each other first. Because get to know her, get to know him, get to know each other, bond before you get her pregnant. Because once she's pregnant and starts nursing and gets pregnant again, and there's a baby in the house, you have to build a real strong foundation when it comes to intimacy. And then you can always look back to that part. If stuff goes wrong or it goes dull, you can look back at that amazing first year that you have. But if you get her pregnant immediately, what's there to look back at? There's nothing, there's no spark or amazing times to look back at much, right? So I would highly recommend that. Also, I would want them to, almost like it's mandatory for them to go to classes to learn, to have the lessons for how to consummate a marriage, to have sex. It should be mandatory to come after the wedding, both of them, to come for a couple of months for sessions. Like, okay, how is it going? What are what are the issues and what's going on? Because so many times that's where there's a bad couple of first months and it goes down from there. Nobody seeks out help. They're embarrassed to talk about it. There's shame, and they don't know who and where to reach out to. They're embarrassed to go call the rabbi.
Yeah, no, actually, on that note, I recently read a couple of memoirs and in a couple of places, stories from the Hasidic community where the couple gets married in an arranged marriage and there are people meddling in their intimate life, like the rabbi and who knows what. Do you find that's common? I didn't.
Not necessarily, unless there's an issue and they're talking to them about it. Then maybe there's a nosy rabbi that's like, what are you guys doing? But I haven't. It didn't come up a lot here. No.
To what degree does the fact that women usually don't take birth control interfere with their sex lives? The fact that having sex means you could get pregnant, I'm sure, is a source of anxiety in some cases, right?
Yes, but also women who take hormonal birth control, their libido drops tremendously. So I encourage those who are on hormonal to get off of it and go on IUD, that like the copper IUD or different hormonal methods where it doesn't interfere with their libido. Because most of the time, again, the majority of men have a higher libido than the women. If they take birth control, then it knocks it down to half or more. So the difference is even bigger.
And the issue with regards to losing libido and on medication is also pretty common for people on antidepressants, right? Are people aware of the consequences?
Well, if I would ask them, and if they say they're on, I usually ask them if they suffer from low libido, I would ask them if they're on any medications. And if they are, some SSRIs are one of the biggest side effects are like,
so for some people, I guess it becomes a real exchange. Some people feel like SSRIs keep them functioning.
Yeah, and some psychiatrists prescribe SSRIs for those with very, very high sex drives to bring it down to normal. Yeah, to bring it down a little bit because they're like abnormally hypersexual and they just can't get enough, and they masturbate multiple times a day. They have sex. They have a need to have sex multiple times a day, constantly. So they go for help, and they tell them to take. I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not so I'm not sure, what it does to them if they do take that.
Is there anything else you want to speak to before we wrap up?
So many guys I'm attracted to my neighbor. I'm attracted to my employee. I'm attracted to my boss. What do I do? How do I deal with it? And I'm like, first of all, attraction is not a sin. It's okay to be attracted to someone. It's okay. It's fine. People are attracted to other people. It's a feeling. It's like, it's an acknowledgement that that person is hot. But that is okay. It's fine to find someone attractive. It's okay to see that there are other beautiful people in the world, right? It's what you do with it. It's how you act. Like, do you ogle at them? Like, what do you do about it? And that's what matters, not the attraction. The attraction isn't the issue. It's what do you do about it?
I think being able to talk to you without judgment, I think that's, in a world where there's so much judgment, it's a relief to hear from you that you set that aside and you listen to people.
Oh, of course. They see it on my replies on Instagram because I don't judge, each to their own, completely. The fact that they can open up and share this with me, I find it great. I find that it's I'm happy that these people feel comfortable with me to be able to open up in that way, that they feel safe.
You're like a giant hug in words. There's something very sweet about that.
I guess.
Well, Peggy, thank you so much for sharing so much and for this conversation. I am going to link your Instagram. Anything else I should link in the video?
No, my Instagram is fine. My Instagram is okay.
Your Instagram is fine. You have everything on your Instagram. Great. I'll link your Instagram in the video description. And thank you, Peggy, and thank you to the viewers and the listeners on the podcast. And
thanks for having me. Bye.